Shall I discuss straight away? Or do you need any clarity on what we discussed in the morning? Okay. So, having said that, I said also that there is a yogic way to go into it. We discussed many ways. One of them is the yogic way. Now please don't think that the yogic way is the only best way or anything of that kind. It depends on the person, it depends on your background, it depends on various factors. But since you come here and you say you want to take Kriya, many of you, then I think you're inclined to the yogic way also. But don't forget the other things. It's not merely by standing on your head or breathing up and down, nobody can touch the reality. We need to know the other things, which is what we discussed for the last one day and today morning, and before that in the evening, the previous day. So you need to have a background, simply by saying, I will do Kriya. In fact, there have been many great yogis, and not yogis, sages and saints who have not done any Kriya whatsoever. It's my discipline, it's my parampara, my tradition, but I'm saying that there are, Babaji always used to ask me, what Kriya did Mirabai practice? Nothing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not practice any Kriya. And Ramana Maharshi on the other side, the wisdom path, he also did not practice. So it's not as if only if you practice Kriya, and that too only if you practice this Kriya which I am giving, then only it's possible, is an illusion. There's nothing like that. And in this world of yogic sciences, there are many kinds of Kriyas, they cannot be one. But when I say Kriya, I'm talking about a particular tradition which has come to me, that's it. And if it is not an absolute necessity that everybody should take Kriya, only if you think it's going to help you, good. And this Kriya which I'm talking about has come to me through Maheshwara, Sri Guru Babaji, directly through Maheshwanath Babaji to me. I have no links with the Self-Realization Fellowship or the in India's Yoga Satsang Society. When I say I have no links, which means I am not from that lineage, except that the founder of the lineage was Babaji, Sri Guru Babaji. Yes. And therefore, there are many similarities in the Kriya given by them. So if somebody has already taken Kriya from the, what is it called? SRF or Yoga YSS, then there is no need to repeat the Kriya. There is no harm, but ultimately we are aligning ourselves to the tradition of Sri Guru Babaji, who Yogananda Paramahamsa calls Mahavatar Babaji. 2 words, but same. So, but there may be minor alterations and differences here and there, because actually Sri Guru Babaji gave, according to our knowledge, more than 108 Kriyas to Lahiri Mahashaya. And most of the lineages which are linked to it have come from him, including Yogananda Paramahamsa. So, and he decided to teach some part of those Kriyas to some, which some people cannot agree with, is that he also taught some other Kriyas to some other people. In his closest disciple was Panchanan Bhattacharya, who was a householder, who lived in Devghar, which is now a separate district, was in Bihar. He considered him as his closest disciple, and probably he has taught him many more Kriyas, that's what we think. Because Panchanan Bhattacharya had many other disciples, and he was a married man, he was a householder, he was not a sannyasin. Why I am saying this is, it is made to appear as if Yukteswar Maharaj is the only disciple of Mahari Mahashaya. No. There were many other disciples. And in fact, Panchanan Bhattacharya was his main disciple. I have nothing to do with Panchanan, but this is a fact. Therefore, if you go to Banaras in the Bengali Tola section, you will see many little Kriya schools independently going on. So there is no clash, I'm just saying, stating facts. So this is the Kriya that we have taken. So the question is now, whichever be the Kriya, how does breathing and something to do with breath what has it to do with finding the supreme absolute reality? Does our breathing affect it or what? So,
Swami Vivekananda, for example, practice Kriyas and meditation and everything also with Sri Rama Krishna?
I don't know. But,
What did he practice, for example?
I don't know. But from the knowledge that we have, it looks like he was his disciple, very close disciple. And he did practice certain methods of Kriya also, may not be from this parampara, from this tradition, but some tradition. And probably he must have taken advice from Sri Ramakrishna before he did it. I have no doubt about that. Because when Swami Vivekananda translated and commented on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which they have collected together now in book form called Raj Yoga, he has referred to a number of breathing techniques and the Ida, Pingala and Sushumna and so on. So definitely he was in the know of it, no question about it. But what exactly he would, we cannot say. I don't know. It's nice to say I don't know, right? I could have pretended and said, oh yeah, that is. So as I said, the yogic path appeals to some people because it's main thing is systematic. Systematic, and it is a scientific way of going about it, step by step, and see the results step by step. So there are many people who prefer that. And actually, to practice yoga, you don't even have to have a belief in a creator God. I'm not saying whether I believe or not, I'm just saying, per se, yoga philosophy is derived from Sankhya. And Sankhya has no Iswara who creates the world. The world is created naturally through elements and the innate intelligence in them, just like evolution. So the essence of Sankhya, the great Muni Kapila, who was one of the ancient teachers and was so great that Krishna had to quote in the Bhagavad Gita, among the Munis I am Kapila. So Kapila is the founder of the Sankhya system. It basically says that when the pure essence of the human, which is surrounded by the distractions of Prakriti, which is the earth and all the world, when that is cleared, that Purusha remains alone in purity. In fact, the word Kaivalya, which is used by Patanjali, instead of moksha and nirvana, Kaivalya, means alone. It comes from Kevalam, only. Here there is no other man, no other agency involved. It's a direct attempt by the student to reach a state of quietness in which the Prakriti's influences have been removed and he is back to his essence called Purusha. If at all he prays to his teacher, who he considered to be a perfect soul who has reached the Purusha. Swami Vivekananda has discussed all this. The concept of Iswara in Yoga Sutras, he has discussed it very beautifully. So, that's why when in Belur Math, which is the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Mission, they wanted to have a temple, Sri Vivekananda said, I would have Ramakrishna as the deity. because I don't know anybody else. Somebody said, Shiva, Krishna, I said, I know only paintings by Raja Ravi Varma, I don't know anybody else. So we don't know how they actually are. So then, this is a man I knew, I saw, I lived with, and he's my God. I mean, he's my, so let's keep Ramakrishna there. This is actually a Sankhya concept, because Sankhya says a man who has touched the Purusha is Purusha. There is no difference. So, now please, Purusha has nothing to do with gender, because in Hindi Purusha means man, something else. So how is it connected? If you are seeking the inner reality which is omniscient, omnipresent and omnipotent, and which is the essence of our being, the core of our consciousness, which is the consciousness behind the mind, the one who sees even the mind, while the mind sees everything else through the senses. This is where, how do we go about it? Is there a connection between the two? Now we have to go into the Astanga Yoga of Patanjali. There are many yogic schools. Among them, the person called Patanjali, maybe 800 years ago, compiled this collection called the Yoga Sutras. In fact, Patanjali refers to, in the Sadhana Pada, which is the beginning of practice chapter, to the yoga which he is going to talk about as Kriya Yoga. So, in the Yoga Sutras, it's like this. First let me look at the Samadhi part, which means the first chapter on what is Samadhi, and then go to practice. Patanjali's idea is you should know where you are going before you start practice. Otherwise, why you practice and then you don't know where you are? So the first chapter is not sadhana or practice, but Samadhi part, the theoretical understanding of what it is that you are looking for. According to that, our minds are always distracted. Our minds are always in conflict. Our minds are always in tension, one thing against the other. Our minds are always caught up in choices, this or that. And from that results distraction. Distraction also results because the energy that we have in our system is being wasted and is not being able to function in its proper way as it should. Prana. So therefore, Patanjali's solution to this is that the distractions of the mind have to be first rubbed off. Unless the distractions of the mind are silenced and done away with, the mind is not capable of reflecting the true essence. Here in the yogic philosophical discussion there is a little difference. Some say that the mind, when it becomes completely free of distractions, when all the vrittis are gone and becomes free of that mind does not anymore remain a mind, but it's actually the Supreme Reality. The other school says no, when the mind is calm and quiet, then the Supreme Reality, the essence is reflected. There are two ways of looking, it doesn't matter. When we go there, we can find out. So, it's a theory. So, therefore, Patanjali, as soon as he begins the chapter on Samadhi, saying, Atha Yoga Anushasanam, here begins the study of yoga. The next sentence is Yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That is the definition. Yoga is the Nirodha of the vrittis of the Chitta. English, you understood, right? Yoga is the Nirodha of the vrittis of the Chitta. Which means yoga as defined by the founder of the science called Yoga Sutras, Astanga Yoga, says that yoga is the clearing of the mind of all its distractions, so that the mind without distractions remains like a mirror, which some say then there is only that, some say then there is a reflection of it. It doesn't matter either way. So the main thing required is that all the distractions have to be cleared. Now, this is also linked to the life energies which are moving inside us. The Yoga Shastra says that there are many channels in our system through which prana operates. I think when they say Nadis, I am feeling it includes arteries, veins, neurons, nerves, everything. Nadi is a channel through which energy moves. It's a general expression. Now, generally, the energy moves in these nadis, in these channels, in a haphazard way. There is no actual orderliness, it is disorderly. Why? Because our mind is always in vrittis, distractions. So sometimes energy is this way, sometimes that way, sometimes this way, sometimes all ways together. And among these hundreds of channels, there are 3 channels which are very important from the yogic point of view. One is the Ida Nadi, and the other is the Pingala Nadi. The Ida is the one that flows on the left, and the Pingala is the one that flows on the right. Actually, the Ida Nadi starts on this side and crosses here and comes to the left, and it starts on this side, the Pingala crosses and comes to the right. But the right one is the Pingala and the left one is the Ida. Now for most of our actions, whatever we do, higher, lower, everything, all we require is for the energies to pass through the Ida and the Pingala, which it does naturally in the natural format. Sometimes more this way, sometimes more this way. Now here is something very interesting. Till some years ago, they thought that the brain is one solid thing which does everything, until they discovered that you can actually, there is a left and the right brain. Lobes were there, that everybody knows, but that whether some functions are performed with the left brain and some with the right brain. And the nadis that flow from here go here, the nadis that flow from here go here. So, I'm just kind of connecting this, and it requires some medical attention and research to figure out that when the left brain is working, is the right breath working? Because the Ida and the Pingala are connected also to your breath. When your right nostrils are open and the energy, when your air is going in and out here, then your Ida, Pingala is working. But it starts from here. And when your left is open, then your Ida Nadi is working, which starts from here. So, according to yogic science, the word pranayama means not breathing, but the laws of prana. Pranayama. What are the rules? What are the laws followed by prana? And luckily, prana is linked to our breath. You can control prana through your breath. Now, so for most purposes, this is enough. We think that both our nostrils work equally at all times. They don't. Sometimes this is more and sometimes this is more. And sometimes they are equal. yogic practice, it's easy to find out. Just keep a glass or a mirror under your nostrils and watch for the blobs of vapor that come. Most cases, one will be bigger than the other, which means that one is operating better than the other. And certain actions are best done when your right nostrils are open, and some are best done when your left nostrils are open. All physical activity, this pranayama, rules of pranayama, all physical activities, walking, running, cutting wood, which we don't do nowadays, eating, drinking, sex, all this is performed optimum when the breath is in the Pingala. Other activities, intuitive activities like music, painting, meditation, all these things work better when the Ida Nadi is working. Since the left in the intuitive system is linked to the right brain, and the practical system is linked to the left brain. So this is how it is. And the yogis know how to shift. Depending upon that activity, you need to perform optimally how to shift from right to left or left to right. And according to yogic calculations, I've not checked it properly, but every 33.5 minutes, right and left shift. And just when they shift, for some time, for a few minutes, both are equal. When both are equal, then the prana travels through the central channel called the Sushumna. Now the Sushumna is the central nervous system. If you speak physically, according to physiology, it's the central nervous system starting from the brain and the spinal cord going down to the bottom of your spine. This is called the Sushumna. You don't require Sushumna except when you want to raise your consciousness from the gross to the subtle and subtle and subtle and finally reach the end of it. For that you need the Sushumna Nadi working. And the Sushumna works when the Ida and the Pingala are balanced. When the prana and apana, prana, apana, samayukta, when both are sama, then the Sushumna opens. Now, if the Sushumna opens and when the prana is flowing through the central channel, we won't worry about Ida Pingala right now. Sushumna, for us most interesting is the Sushumna. Then what happens? The energies in us, the prana, is not being dissipated in useless actions, is not being distracted. Therefore, it combines and comes all together in the Sushumna. When this happens, the distractions of the mind come to an end, they settle down. And the mind, in its sharp, clear, undistracted form, travels from the lower centers of consciousness to the higher centers step by step, till it finally reaches the point where the inner consciousness is most active. First it reaches heart, from there it clears up certain energies and goes to the top. First it has to come here and then go up. So this process, therefore, is the clearing of the chitta, the mind, of all its distractions and vrittis, and the gathering of all the energies together. As long as the energies are not gathered, you can't stop the distractions. So this is the process of Kriya, Pranayama, where you gather all the energies which are dissipated, bring them together in the lowest center, which we call the Muladhara. And with the certain practices, raise those energies along with your awareness from the lowest center to the next. There are 7 centers starting at the bottom and reaching here. This is the process of Kriya. Therefore, what is the link? The link is that the breath is connected to the mind stuff. When the breath is made to fall in a certain pattern, then the distractions of the mind are removed. When the distractions of the mind go, then there is a lot of energy left to us because it's not being wasted. And this energy, like a dynamo, is made to travel through the Sushumna till it reaches the Sahasrara, the 1000-petal lotus. When it reaches there, then one is free of all conditioning. This is the process. This is how the breath, the practice, and the mind and the self are linked. And it is a step-by-step practice. Now there are many upayas or ways to do this. One is Kriya, the other is through chanting some mantras also. So our subject here is Kriya for the time being. How chanting of mantras? Because each of these centers, starting with the lowest, called a Muladhara, they are generally not active in most people. The lowest one is always active, the Muladhara. Muladhara is responsible for sex, excretion, and creation. How creation? Because it is from there that a baby is created. That is the center which has to be active. So the Muladhara is functional in most people. But in Kriya, what we are trying to do is to turn the energy from there towards the Sushumna so that one becomes spiritually creative, not only physically creative. You see what a tremendous thing to make a baby, full baby. We do nothing. Just something, action, and there it is. And then it goes there and creates the whole baby. And it comes out thinking, intelligent, walking, eating, drinking, smiling. So that is creative, physical creative. This is the function of the Muladhara. So therefore, as it goes up, the creativity becomes subtler and subtler. When it comes here, it creates the Supreme Deity, capacity to touch the Supreme Deity. So this sublimation of the energies to higher levels is the process of Kriya, and also, as I said, it's also the process sometimes people are not conscious of it perhaps, but unconsciously music, sound, devotion, and so on. Except that in Kriya it's a step-by-step yogic process, so that you have some idea where it's going and it's under your control. Now sound. Each of these centers has something which is roughly like a sensor, S-E-N-S-O-R, sensor. And a certain sound or syllable, the sound of a certain syllable, is able to make that sensor work and open the center. So the switch is a sound, not a physical. Open each center, which is also called a chakra, because there is a movement of energy, there is a whirling of energy. There is a sound. When that sound is pronounced, japa, then the sensor immediately takes note of it and expands the center. So from the lower center to the higher center, there are some mantras, Bija aksharas, which when chanted continuously with complete attention on that center, open up and recharge the center, and then from there you move to the next. Now one thing is, each center starting with Muladhara upwards, as it slowly opens up, that's why it's represented by lotus in many ancient traditions, because it blooms. As it blooms, the first tangible experience that a human being has is bliss. You know the tangible experience that one has when the energy functions through the Muladhara? We all know that. Human beings die to get it. After you have food and shelter, the most important thing is that for most human beings. Also for animals, but for human beings. So you see that it's what is it called? That ecstasy, there is a name for it. The orgasm. So that's in the Muladhara, the lower center when it's functioning outside. So imagine what would be the orgasm when the other centers, higher centers open up. Sometimes people go crazy because they can't hold it. So you say this, till now we are still in theory. Now stepping up to practical. The sound to activate the lowest center upwards. Downwards you don't need any sound. To waken it upstairs, to waken it upwards, the sound is lam. L-M, lam. So one of the ways of doing in mantra japa, also in when you practice Kundalini Yoga, is to fix your attention on the Muladhara. Now if you are a person who is very artistic, you can actually have an elaborate mandala there, square, and inside there is a fire burning, and you're waiting for the flame to go up. As you watch one flame. So you want to put fuel into it, lam, 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 lam. And then, I'm thinking of finding out if there is a musical instrument which can make the sound of lam, which can be felt like a vibration, can be fitted at the bottom. I don't know. Of the spine, I didn't say bottom. Maybe it will work, who knows. It should be vibrating lam, 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 at this interval. And then when you do that in your mind, mentally, or even little bit audibly, it doesn't matter, and very slowly open up. Okay. Now again you need to lift the awareness up and take the flame further up, thin flame going up. And then to the next one. This is not the practice, we'll discuss that later. I'm just giving you an idea. The next one, the sound, the mantra, the Bija Akshara, it's called, the seed sound is Vam. Vam. What I would like to do at some point is to have a good scanner, and now we have all kinds of scanners which say what the brain is and how it works. You can see it in pictures. Make the sounds in these areas and see what's coming out there. It'll be interesting. So, lam, vam. And the next, I'm pointing in front, but it's actually in the middle, inside. Next center, to awaken it. So now, just as the ecstasy you feel down, you begin to feel the ecstasy up. And at some point you might feel as if you are drunk. But not like that, but doesn't have a hangover. It's a very beautiful drinking of nectar. And once you have a little bit of taste of it, then you're not going to stray from the path. Why? Why would you go away from a bar that's open 24 hours. So the next sound is Vam. And just above that, in the navel area, which many people know as the solar plexus, in front, but this is inside. If somebody gives you one poke in the solar plexus, for some time you can't do anything, you're deflated totally. Important plexus. Inside that, near the spine, comes the Manipura chakra, whose sound is Ram. Now that is very close to the bar, Ram. Difficult drink. Ram, 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 Ram. Ram. The sound Ram is also involved in the Tibetan exercise known as Tumo, where the body is heated in cold climates, because the energy of the Manipura is hot like fire. It's Aruna Prabham, red like fire. And the sound of Ram is a rumbling sound that produces heat in the Manipura. And with your mind you can spread it to different parts of the body. This is what Milarepa was an expert in. But for our purpose, we don't want to spread it to the body because we have air conditioners and heaters and so on. We only need to take it up. So, Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam. Not M, Yam. Only in Tamil Nadu I am called Yam. Sri Yam. So, Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Hum. That's why that hum is added at the end of the mantra, the Mahayanis. Om Mani Padme Hum. They say Hum, but it doesn't matter. If you write H-U-M Hum, definitely in Germany they will say Hum. So, Hum. So, Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Hum. I'm saying this because tomorrow or in the evening, when we discuss the practice, it will be very useful for you. And then there is this center and there is this center. So this is the ajna, not here but inside, which in a certain practice we need to knock. Somebody said, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Knock. And then from there, the sound here is Om, common Om. And then this center is also Om. So Om stretches from here, Om. This is the symbol which you see some people with sandalwood paste. Just from here to here. Both are Om. Hari Om. And when Om reaches here, then there is only Hari. The Supreme. So this is the process, and this is the link with the sound, and these are the centers. So when we come back in the evening, I will draw the picture here so that you don't mistake, and have all of them in kind of an order, and you can see what's going on. You won't see it here, you'll see it here. So what we're trying to figure out is how breath has anything to do with this, because we have Pranayama, Kriya Pranayama. The thing is, when you stabilize your breathing, when you bring your attention to the Sushumna, then all the energies that are scattered in your system, they all get united together in one place. When they are there, then they're really like a fire, strong fire. And when you breathe in with that, then the breath goes up along with the flame. And as it goes up, okay. The other function is when you breathe in, most of us, our Sushumna Nadis, are clogged with various unwanted things. Muck. It's like trying to fill a flute with muck and trying to get music out of it. Not possible. You need to have it all out. And the spine, the Sushumna Nadi, is like a flute. It's hollow and it has 7 holes, which the one that blows here and other things that come in. So if you want this Supreme Being to blow through it and get some music, you need to clear it first of all the muck that is there. And the muck can be our anger, our dislikes, our hurts, our injuries, our attachments, our obsessions, sometimes even from the last life, mostly yes, also. So the first exercise when you learn in Kriya is how to gather your prana together into the bottom part of the Sushumna and use it to clean up and down the spine, up and down the Brahmadanda or the Sushumna. This is the connection between breathing and the mind. And when the Sushumna is cleaned up, then the breath is made to move very systematically through all these centers, step by step, and then the sound is added to it, and then the mind expands, and you have a mind which is no more conditioned by your likes and dislikes and all these things that are there. Such a mind ascends to the highest, and like Patanjali says, all the vrittis are removed. In that quietness and blissful awareness, the supreme essence of your being is felt. This is the aim of yoga. Still theory. The next step would be practical. How to start. However, since this is our parampara, this is our tradition which has come, before we start anything, we always use the Guru Mantra to link with the original Guru, the teacher Sri Guru Babaji, who has given us this Kriya. Linking the heart of the root Guru to your heart, as they say in Vajrayana, the root Guru. And for that you need to learn the Guru Mantra and how to chant it and what to do. This I'll do it in the next session. Now we have about 15 minutes and I want you to clarify right here before we go further. Don't ask me when we're going to do something. Hey, wait a minute, I'm going. Now we can do it. It kinds of destroys the fabric of the whole thing.
Short question.
Yeah.
I learned that the first chakra, Narendra, is going down.
Say that again. The
first chakra,
Yeah.
I learned that it's going down to earth people.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah?
Correct.
And in the Kriya Yoga, you learn to bring it up.
Yes.
Is it
Chakra
like,
doesn't come up. The energy comes up. Chakra is there. Chakra cannot be raised, brought down, no way. But the energies, you're right, the energy of the lowest chakra, which is called the Mooladhara, root foundation, its center is at the bottom of the spine and its effect goes right up to the bottom. Because it is that which controls everything below this. And therefore, the tattva or the energy in it is called Prithvi, which means earth. Prithvi also means solid, which means three-dimensional. So this is the chakra that touches all the complete three-dimensional earth in which we live, starting from the bottom of the spine and down. But you don't have to go down. You need to only go to its root, which is in the bottom of the spine, which is called the mula. Mula is root actually. So, as you fix your attention there and bring all your pranas there and do your practice, including the chanting of the sound, then all the energies from down are lifted up and brought in one place, ready to go up. That would be a better description.
I have two questions. Can it be dangerous when you practice wrongly? And the second question is, do you need the presence of a guru, say on a yearly basis? Because
I'll tell you.
Lahiri Mahasaya, I think, had written that his students, they had to come to him once a year.
Once a year is great, but daily is better. But daily is not possible, right? Nowadays, it is not possible. Suppose you have a few students and you're living in a quiet place somewhere. It's nice to sit together and practice, because whenever you have a problem, you can say, look, this is, then you can change it. But unfortunately, it's not possible nowadays. But once in a year, a review would be good. Once in a year, a review would be good. But for a review, we need to practice the rest of the year. And this other question you asked, can it go wrong? Yes, it can go wrong in the sense that if you're doing the exercise in a wrong way, or most important, if you're combining it with any other chemical substance that can aggravate or excite your centers.
Can you drink coffee?
Coffee is all right, milk is all right, water is all right, a glass of beer on a sunny day is all right. Avoid, but I'm just saying, a glass of wine is all right once in a while, but not every day.
Then I'm safe.
You're safe. So then nothing to worry. And the other thing, there's one important thing to note, which is especially any other chemical substance is not recommended with Kriya, because it can make it haywire. Things may go in a different way than you want. So all narcotics are not a good idea to have, except tobacco, which we know is very bad for the system, physically, so keep off. As far as alcohol is concerned, occasional alcohol, for instance, medicines have alcohol nowadays, a little bit. It's okay, but it should not become an addiction, and that's the problem with it. And certainly after having alcohol, even minimum, the same rule like driving. Drunk, don't drive. In the same way, if you had alcohol, don't practice Kriya immediately after that. It can complicate things. Apart from that, it cannot cause any problem to you, Kriya. If you learn it, listen carefully and learn and practice, nothing is likely to go wrong, except that you don't overdo it. If I say practice only for half an hour, don't think now I'm going to attain mukti, kaivalya, and practice the whole night for 10 days. You can have problems. Because the body and the mind are not ready to, what do you call it? Handle it. Simple word. Look, again let me go a little bit. You're playing with a high voltage electric current. It's not a joke. So, if you don't have the proper insulation, and if you don't know exactly where the terminals are, you know how it happens in electricity. Same thing can happen. But when we teach, we make sure that all safety rules are laid. That you wear rubber gloves and rubber shoes. I mean, not for all that is done.
What was the longest you had done?
Now, I'm not going to discuss this because then everybody will. I must tell you this. One day I told Babaji that look, my Kriya is, I want to do more. How? He said, how? I said, I want to go for 10 days away to the forest inside. He said, you're already in the cave? No, deeper inside. Okay. And then stop eating food and drinking water and stand on one leg and do my Kriya. He said, you're gone crazy, completely crazy. He said, I'm here and you're doing your Kriya and it will take its time. I said, no, but then the yogis have done that in ancient times. I said, this is Kali Yuga, you're talking about Dwapara Yuga, it doesn't work. I still said, I have to do it. You know, when you're young, 20 years old, a little rebellious. I said, no. He told me something very funny, I don't know how to say it. He said, if the goat, sheep, seeing an elephant, decides that I have to shit like an elephant, you know what will happen? So, you just tear his ass, he said. I said, I'm sorry. Babaji used to be very crude. His language was like that. He didn't care for the niceties of language. I'm very sorry. But I had to say it.
I have a direct follow-up question to the previous, to the substances which are allowed and which are not allowed. So you gave some examples for what you can eat or take to you, but can you give some
narcotics, for instance.
Oh.
If you're practicing Kriya, keep away from narcotics. Because they're not a good mix, not a judicial mix.
What about sexual activity, which is also very exciting? Might it be an obstacle in some cases, or is it even of advantage in order to bring up this energy?
Bring up energy. Okay. Now, it's the same energy which is used in sex, which is being activated here. Agreed. Therefore, it's not harmful to have sexual activity, provided you have a certain discipline and not haphazard, not wayward. If you have a certain discipline, it makes no obstacle to arousing the energies. However, but also, just like any other food or any other entertainment, it shouldn't be overdone. But if you suddenly put a stop to it, it can cause reactions to most people, because it's like artificially winding down on something which is natural. So you can go at it in a natural way and have some kind of a discipline and a periodic table which you can check and so on. What I mean is, let it be a little bit, and you will also find that if you do that, when it happens you enjoy more. Otherwise it's all gone, nothing is left. So, And the third thing to note is, yes, you can, even when you are indulging, don't make it into a technique, but when you are indulging, if you know how to do the Kriya properly, at that point you can raise the energies up instead of allowing them to go down. It's called Vajroli. Not only that, your partner will also begin to kind of feel something is going on. But don't make it an active technique, because there is an active technique you can do without it. But since you have a wife or a partner, so when you do that, also try to understand the inner implications of it. This is the same energy, the Devi which I am utilizing. May I request you to also go up? And then it can change the whole thing and make it into a divine process. But I'm not saying that that is the key process. No. There are other ways of doing it.
Sir, is it also possible to think of, let's say with this, when we chant this Bija, is it also possible to think of certain deities?
Of course, each deity is linked in some way. See, whenever there is a sound, the sound is an image. So, traditionally, each sound is associated with a certain energy and a certain image and a certain sound. If you ask me, if you have a little iron filings on top of a paper and if you put a magnet underneath, immediately they get into a design. There's a form, there's a shape. In the same way, each sound has a certain shape. And in this case, in the Tantras, they have described many deities for each center. So when you visualize the deities and chant the sound, it may be doubly effective. But you can do without. You can think of the lotus. You don't have to think of the deities. You can think of the lotus and chant the sound. The sum total of all deities, which is called the Parashakti or Supreme Energy, is the Devi, the feminine energy. Tripura Sundari. It can also be cobra energy. So you can visualize that if you like. But please understand that you are only visualizing and that there is no cobra inside. This is very important to note. Because you shouldn't say this, when I go to sleep also the cobra is not going. There is no cobra, you are just visualizing it.
Yes, to connect with what the previous question, with Chakra and images, and yesterday you talked about the power of imagination, which is connected with images. So that leads me to the bhava and the connection between bhava as an emotional mood in this imagination and mantra or Vichakshara practice, and as an extension of that, the different, if you could elaborate on the different bhava maybe on this ascension and the evolution of this bhava. Since your name was Madhu, and they spoke about this Madhura Bhava at a certain time of this devotional practice, bhakti or tantra or whatever.
Can we do it later? I'm already trying to bring my bhava down.
When you talk about the words which are connected to the centers,
The sounds.
the sounds, yeah, they actually can be experienced from within like that? Because there is also sounds like a flute or other sounds. How are they connected? And
because they're not the same as the words you have mentioned before.
No. When the meditation deepens on the inner centers, especially in these centers, up here, then you begin to hear some sounds inside. Those sounds are not the Bijaksharas. There are the internal sounds which are always there in nature, but we can't hear because our ears don't have the frequency to detect them. They're not built for that frequency. Like you know that you can't hear ultrasound because it is beyond your frequency. In fact, you cannot probably even hear a dog whistle, which is a different frequency. So, there are many sounds which are the sounds of nature, of the atoms, of the electrons, and there is the sound of music going on in the system all the time, which you cannot hear because our ears, our physical ears, are not built to feel those frequencies. They're beyond. So therefore, when you go inside and when your mind becomes subtler and subtler, without the help of these physical organs, you begin to kind of get in tune with these sounds. These are the sounds that you hear. It could be like a flute, or if you have never seen a flute, you wouldn't know what sound it is. But since we know, so we associate it with this. But it's just a sound, beautiful sound, like a veena, like a violin. Now what happens? Sometimes it's just a sound like crickets, or like bells, or like something very nice sounds. And if once you hear this sound, some sound, don't get greedy and say, I want all sounds. Any one sound, if you hear in deep meditation, it's probably heard somewhere here. Then your task becomes easy. Because then all you have to do is fix your attention on that music and allow it to take you. Then it will take you to the essence. Since it's not easy to hear the sound, we do the Brahmari and make the sound and try to listen to it. And then slowly the subtler sounds get into the picture. But if you hear no sounds during the meditation, don't worry about it. Don't deliberately try to bring in sounds. Now, sounds are not coming, so what am I to do? It depends on various people. Some people don't hear any sound. Some people do. It depends on various constitutions. Mental constitution, not physical.
Prabhu, I have two questions. One is related to this activation of energy and the possibility of it getting blocked halfway through. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos where people have just done it in a way which really becomes very painful for them, and they are in excruciating pain all the times. Are they really related to this chakra activation, or are they talking something totally different?
It could be different. I don't think if you properly do Kriya according to proper instruction, any such things can happen. There will be a mess up somewhere.
The second question is related to Brahmacharya.
Brahmacharya?
You mentioned that there is no harm in procreation. But as we all know, in modern days, the activity related to procreation is just for the sake of it. There is no intention to procreate. And it is in direct contravention to what our ancient scriptures say. Because they say that there is the very activity of procreation is depleting your body of the prana. And the attempt should always be to conserve the prana, because that's what you need to reach the higher realms. So how does it...
Any artificial mode, when the scriptures talk, they're talking about some other age. Today, any sublimation of these energies have to be done gradually, slowly, carefully, in a moderate way. If you suddenly climb down on these you may end up like what those people describe. Energy went up and nothing is happening, and all kinds of pain and all. So it becomes a psychological obsession. You have to do it in a very unless you are impotent and you can't do anything. That's a different matter. But otherwise, you should always go about it in a very moderate way. This is exactly what I said. Don't overreach yourself and say, oh, I'm a great yogi, I'm going to stop everything. It won't stop. It will come out in some other way. Go about it in a reasonable way. Because it's such a compulsive feeling, it's not a joke. If you completely try to cut it off, it will come out in various pathological disorders. You have to be careful with that.
And the natural question is, what are the appropriate? Then the natural question would be then, what are the natural ways appropriate for the modern life that we could push ourselves towards the right path rather than be deluded?
Yeah, so the right path is moderation in everything. That's the right path. Moderation is required, I agree.
So how can you avoid being getting crazy?
What?
Holding the energy and not getting crazy by not overdoing half an hour. And inside, you were talking about narcotics, but there are these chemicals inside the brain.
Nothing will happen. Okay. Don't worry about it. But I would still like to tell you that don't overreach. If I say half an hour, practice for half an hour, for some time. Give it time so that the body and the mind will be able to adjust to it. Suddenly don't sit one day, full day, I'm going to do Kriya. Not advisable. Not only Kriya, any such practice, including mantra japa, because it can have other effects. So go about it carefully, do for an hour, half an hour, increase your time, and then if you have still a problem, check up with me. In some way, use email or whatever. Or unless you have some telepathic capacity, use email, and then when I meet you again, maybe next year, if I'm going to give you Kriya and you need to see me sometime, then we can check up on what's happening.
So hearing sounds is not getting crazy. Hearing sounds
No.
is not getting crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit crazy when you're hearing voices, but not sounds. That also is not crazy, it's simply, see what happens when people say we're hearing voices. There are auditory centers in the brain which normally work only when you hear outside, audibly. Sometimes these auditory centers in the brain are activated even without the external ear operating. So that's when you hear these voices. Now that's a sign of chemical imbalance, you need to work out something for that. That doesn't happen in Kriya. This is sound, I'm talking of pure sound, not...
I have two questions. I do yoga. And I tried to work on the chakras with yoga. Is it wise to work on a while on one chakra, or is it better to go all the 7 chakras through the 7 chakras? That is the one question. And the second is, what is the difference between harmonizing the chakras and waking up the Kundalini?
We will discuss this when we come to the actual technique of Kriya. Then we'll discuss. No harm. And let me tell you that to stay for some time in each center is not a bad idea at all. But then there are some guidelines. We'll discuss that when we do. When we do Chakra Dharana, then I will discuss this matter with you.
I have a question, a small conflict which I thought is a conflict, but I don't think you will change your answer because I'm asking this question. So, lectures in Geneva, you talked about Astanga Yoga and you said there are niyamas. So I just remembered Brahmacharya is one of the tenets of Yama.
That's right.
So it's supposed to be practiced along with Kriya. It's one of the rules. So you still would say that Brahmacharya still means in moderation.
Yeah. I would also say that Brahmacharya is not merely physical abstention from sex. Brahmacharya, all activities that lead to the Brahman are Brahmacharya. Not only this. So only thing is people get too obsessed with only that. With the idea of controlling it, then they become obsessed with it. I don't want it, it keeps coming back. You leave it in its proper place, that's what I'm trying to say. And don't get too obsessed with it, too caught up with it. Because there have been a lot of propaganda by many so-called sannyasis that you absolutely. And also it's not as if you have Brahmacharya, everything sort of collects in one place and then you heat it with a stove and the kundalini goes. There is no place to collect. You know that every time when you have an ejaculation, the prostrate gland immediately produces something. There is no place to hide, there is no sack up there. Somewhere there is a wrong understanding of this. So what is meant is that one needs to have moderation. That means don't be exclusively obsessed only by that. There are very many other things to look at. I would say that, as it was taught to me.
Hi, sir. Back to the sound and music question. And this gentleman's question is with regards to hearing music. Sometimes when I'm in stillness or in quietness, certain types of beautiful music comes. It's not sound music. Is that just like some type of creative imagination that's happening?
Say that again.
Sometimes when you're in a state of silence, pieces of music come.
Yeah?
Beautiful pieces of music. You hear it.
From outside or
no, it's in here.
Inside, yeah.
But you don't have the capacity to produce it. Is that
but it happens spontaneously. This is what you're saying.
When you're in.
You're not producing it in any way.
Yeah. You're not trying to create it.
Okay, so.
That's one.
Yeah. So wait a minute, let's stay there first. So when you hear such pieces of music, when your mind is still, stop all other activity and allow your mind to flow with it. Let go of it. Allow your mind to flow and say, now I'm not thinking of anything, moksha, nirvana, I'm just listening to the music. Sit. What happens when you do that? Generally, that it goes off.
When you come out, you want to reproduce it again, but you have no skill set to do it.
No, you can't do that. It's spontaneous. You cannot produce it. What I'm talking to him was not to produce the music, but how to listen to it. You cannot make it.
One more question. Two more, actually. Sound. It's very easy to hear the sound for me now, but it's not. It's more like.
Can you imitate?
It is a pervasive silence that it's in here, but it's out there, in here and out there. And it's one, and it's easier to meditate on that than anything else. Now, there's greater depth to it if you stay with it. There's something that it evolves.
It what?
It evolves, that sound. If you let it be, or if you kind of give it a little more attention. And there are things that happens in here you can physically feel and shift. So what is that, and what do you do with that? And
nothing. Stay with it. Be patient. Stay with that sound.
Okay, one more question then. I'm going about my day, just doing anything, whatever, right? And then I hear a snap in here. It's like a gunshot, really loud. The best way to describe it is like high tension, high voltage, electric Comes out of nowhere.
Right? It's exact reproduction. And
what is that, and how do you
there's something snapping
jump
inside.
and you're like nobody's behind?
It's something snapping inside. Which is now that you've been with me for some years and you've been doing certain things, right? So what's happened is there are some things getting cleared up here in these channels. So don't be afraid. Some channels are blocked and those blocks are being broken. So it's okay. This is the same thing that when they do pujas and tantra and all that, they imitate with their fingers by snapping. This snap is happening naturally inside. So it's okay. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing dangerous. You don't need to go to a psychiatrist. You're perfectly all right. Stay with it. Stay with it. And if you feel worried or afraid or uncertain, then just chant the Guru Mantra. You know the Guru Mantra. Yeah. With the Bijakshara. Chant it. Last question.
Thank you. So many gentlemen spoke about the music or the sound they hear. But me, when I sit on meditation, the first thing that comes in front of me is all the things that I push myself to forget or something which I have already forgotten, which are mostly negative things that comes in first. How do I handle it? Like just like the music, just I flow with it, or
no? Don't go with it.
Yeah, that's one part of the
This is a different thing. More.
Second part is like whenever I do Guru Mantra or the Gayatri Japa, for a fraction of a second I go breathless. Like I feel like I'm going to faint and then suddenly I come back.
But do you feel unpleasant? Or
No.
There's nothing like that.
Suddenly the heartbeat stops and then...
you don't suffer.
No.
Are you enjoying it? And then stay with it. There you stay with it.
Okay.
But the unnecessary things that come when you sit down to meditation, you need to avoid, push them out somehow. It comes only through practice. There is no way you can push them out, but engage your mind in the internal process so much, with so much attention, that there is no space for these fellows to come. That's the best thing to do. Engage, see, when you do Kriya Pranayama, if something like this comes, put your complete attention on the pranayama, and when you begin to enjoy it, none of these things will matter. But the last thing you said, what was that?
Going breathless or...
When that happens, don't avoid, don't push. Just take, nothing is going to happen. Your heart is not going to stop. You can, if your heart stops, please write it and keep. M said it won't stop, so they'll catch me.
Yeah, the negative things, like for example, a fight with a friend, I've already, in a worldly living, like I would have already forgotten it, I would have been...
They come back.
But they come back.
Yeah, because when the mind is, this is called the churning. Churning takes place before the nectar comes. All that muck inside you is likely to come up. That's the time when you need to say, okay, I don't want this, I clean it. With your mind, I want to clean it, I want to get out of this, and sit quietly watching them. You can't push because they're not physical. They're inside your mind. So be aware of that and say, this has come to go, not to stay. Then allow it to go. Not allow it to be. Make the difference between it. Allow it to go. In fact, if you're a visual person, you can imagine that you have a big water hose and you're blowing full hard like the firemen who come to douse the fire and everything. It depends on what kind of person you are. Enough for today. Need to get the Kundalini down.